ready to the countdown.
Hey everyone.
Hey everybody.
Hi.
We made it.
Hey.
We made it. Give me a second here. So if you are on the line, welcome to the glass table. Click like and share this stream. And we're going to share these streams in our respective groups and everything right now so that people know that we're live right now. So welcome everybody.
Hey everyone.
Let's get started. I am trying to share the stream and look at the comments here. We have Stella on the line. She says, greetings from China.
Yay.
Hello.
Wow. Yeah.
Ni hao.
Actually, Stella is Filipino, I believe.
Yeah. But she lives in Macau.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Macau. That's so
Hello.
cool.
Let's see who else we got on the line here. We have Kelly Carlson, who says hello.
I know Kelly from a
Isn't
group.
that a famous singer?
Oh, yeah.
That's Clarkson.
Hey, girls.
Oh, yeah.
Joining us from Facebook, Samantha.
Oh.
Where are all my YouTubers? We got everybody here from Facebook. Lots of love from Australia. She's from Australia.
Wow.
Hi, Samantha.
Yeah.
Hey.
So we are. I'm just checking the sound. Yep, she says yep here. Okay.
Good.
All right, so let's get started. Our topic today is we're talking about PIMOs. I mean, it's an acronym that is, if you're watching and you're not a ex-Jehovah's Witness, it's an acronym that is frequently used in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community to describe Jehovah's Witnesses who are secretly ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or wanting to be ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and they are physically in the organization, attending meetings, living that Jehovah's Witness life, but mentally out of the indoctrination, like they're fully awake. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it took me a while to try to narrow it down because I had never heard of what a PIMO was. That's new to school to me. I've never heard of what PIMO. A PIMO. I had to learn what a PIMO is. Is it a POMO? Physically out, mentally out?
Yeah,
Fully
POMO.
awake.
Physically out, mentally in.
Physically
And that's
out.
POMI.
Yeah,
is
POMO, and then there's POMI as well, yeah.
Yeah, I wish they had. I knew those little cute little names when I was out here before I knew the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. It was on the online community. It was just me. I didn't know what that. Didn't know what that was. And then when we had this show, I had to think about times in my life maybe that I may have been physically out or mentally in, and I couldn't. I'm one of those acronyms. But let's talk about physically in, mentally out. Does anybody have a story they want to share on the panel today? I can say that I don't think I've ever been through that stage.
Me neither. I had a massive stage of being a POMI, but
Me too. And
I was, but at the time I didn't realise that that's what I was, because about 2 years before I left, I was like 18, 19. I just started going out, doing whatever I wanted. I was always in trouble. I've mentioned this on past videos. I was always in the elders' room at the end of the meeting because I've been dubbed in for doing this and doing that. And basically I lived what they call a double life for 2 years, and it wasn't until even the past couple of months I sat down and thought to myself, hold on a minute. I was, you know, it's not a double life. I was literally like physically out, but mentally out, but not realising it at the time that that's what I was. And it's only now looking back, I think I lived that life for 2 years, but didn't didn't think about it. I hated going to meetings. I hated doing field service. I cut down on whatever as much as I could until I just basically stopped doing it all and just tried to fade away from it.
So anybody else? Thanks for sharing, Emma. I guess your story is the same, that you didn't know that what they were calling PIMO is actually what you were.
Yeah.
So it's very familiar to all of us. I'm sorry, Sharon. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I would say, and it does take some thought, even though I've used that term for a long time. I think for all of us, you have to like pause and think for a minute because the acronyms are so hard to remember.
They are.
So I was, what you just said, I was physically in, mentally out, but not fully. So I had doubts about their doctrines since the age of 19. And there were some things that I just, they tell you to do deep research, and I started doing deep research. And the more research that I did, like the Bereans, I had more questions, like what you said, Spencer. Mm-hmm. So, earlier when we were talking, so I had a lot of questions, and I kept meeting with the elders and the sister that was studying with me. My grandmother tried, reinforcing, the doctrines, and I did research from their books, and it just didn't make sense. So, but I kept going to the meetings because I thought there was something wrong with me. And you don't, when you're in a cult, you're not taught to trust your gut. You're taught to not lean upon your own understanding, like the Bible says.
Right.
So I didn't trust my own gut instinct. Like, there's something not right about this. And instead, I went from the age of 19 until I was 33. And I went ahead and I got baptized anyway when I was 26 years old, even though I was born in. I didn't get baptized till I was 26. And the reason is because I was mentally partially out. I didn't believe everything they taught. But I got baptized December of 1999 when they were talking about the Y2K scare. I mean, around the world.
About that.
Yeah, around the world. So what the society did, what Jehovah's Witness leaders did at that time, they did that thing again that they do every so often. Well, if your Bible student is not making progress, then let them go. If you don't see progress within 6 months. Well, I had been studying for years, and I still didn't believe everything they taught. So my Bible teacher dropped me, and I was so heartbroken. Well, I don't want to take up the whole time. Anyways, so I
go ahead, Sharon. Tell us how you feel. I mean, let us know, because I mean, there's somebody out there that can see themselves in your story. As I've learned, as quirky and as weird and as out there as you think your ExJW Witness story is, there is somebody out there that can either top you or can either identify with what you're going through. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, where was I? You might have to help me. I'm trying to remember where I was at.
You were saying that with the white, oh my God, the 2000.
Yeah. So it's not like the society was saying the end of the world is going to happen at during Y2K, but the whole world was freaking out at that time. And so a lot of the Jehovah's Witnesses were also thinking, they were stockpiling, and they were thinking this might be the end of the world. And I was one of them. So what I did was I told the brothers, I would like to get baptized. Well, go over these 100 questions and then, get back with us. So I did. And when I got to those Bible questions that I had doubts about for years, which made me a PIMO. Mm-hmm. This is how I overcame it temporarily. I brainwashed myself. I read those questions and answers and those scriptures over and over and over and over. It was like, I don't know, 6 questions or something. Until finally I had brainwashed myself and I thought that I really believed it now. So I went back to the elders. I said, I'm ready to get baptized. And I went over the questions and I passed. But guess what? Not too long after I got baptized, I was expected to go out in field service. It just, like, my doubts just kept coming back. And I was like, I can't go out in service. I cannot go up and knock on someone's door and tell them something I don't believe. And so I was told, well, do you believe all these other things? I said, well, yeah. Well, then just talk about those things. And I said, well, I can't, because everything goes back to the kingdom. And that's what I didn't believe their whole ideology about the paradise and that only Jehovah's Witnesses would be saved at Armageddon, that God was going to destroy everyone else. I didn't believe it anymore. And so after I get baptized, I didn't go out in field service. I just slowly started with an abusive husband too. I just slowly started not going to the meetings. And I immersed myself in work. And so, but it wasn't until I ended up getting disfellowshipped for something that, and people had told me, you should look up Jehovah's Witnesses at the public library. Because they're not in the religious section, they're in the religious cult section of your public library. Well, number one, I didn't believe that. And number two, I was afraid to look up anything negative about Jehovah's Witnesses.
We all were, I'm pretty sure.
So even though I was disfellowshipped, totally shunned, surviving with my 4 children alone, I still was afraid. But one day I was at the library with one of my home health clients, and she was in the Amish section. And I happened to see the name Jehovah's Witnesses in that aisle right next to books about cults. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, I literally panicked. I was so afraid. And I picked up one of the books and I flipped through it, and there was a list about 50 different distinguishing characteristics of what a religious cult looks like. And I stood there and I just read through them. And in my mind, I was like, check, 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 check. I got down to the bottom and I was like, oh my God, that's why me and the kids are going through this. That's why, oh my God, I came from a cult. And that was my first wake-up call, was going to the public library. So I would say I was a PIMO. I'm almost done here. I was physically in, slightly mentally out. But I also, there's another scripture that they use that basically I battled with that in my mind. And it was the one where Jesus said that certain people just didn't get the sense of it. So that's what I thought. I thought there's something wrong with me. Everyone else, all of my peers, all of my family and friends, they all get it. I don't believe a couple of things. So there's something wrong with me. I don't get the sense of it. So I thought I was destined for destruction when I was still, if I didn't understand it ever, I was going to die. That's what I was afraid of. So that also pushed me into getting baptized, which backfired because I got disfellowshipped and lost all of my family. So anyways, but it was, I eventually, after I read that at the public library, then I became physically out. I was, for a time after being disfellowshipped, I was still a POMI. I was physically out, but mentally in. Because I still thought it was the truth at first, and I was going to go back when I was ready. But then when I read the stuff at the library, then I became a POMO.
A POMO.
I became physically out, mentally out. And there's no turning back once you become a POMO. Praise the something. Praise the something.
Somebody. Something. Right.
That's all I had to say.
I should have probably clarified that when I was mentally out, it wasn't because I had a few doubts, but it wasn't because I didn't believe it anymore. It was literally because I didn't want that life. I wanted to go out and do what I wasn't allowed to do. So it didn't take me until a couple of years after I left. I think it was in 2000 when the guy that I was with, his mom was actually a Jehovah's Witness. And she started telling me this weird stuff about, 2000 is going to be the end of the world. And the 4 horsemen, you're going to see the signs in the sky. That's actually being said. And I started thinking, what is she talking about? Like, really? And then I started having dreams about seeing horsemen in the sky and stuff. And then it was then I realised I left in 96. And in 2000, I thought, this isn't happening. It's all BS basically, and it took me until probably 4 years after I left. I was just like, nah, and that's when I kind of stopped believing. And it wasn't until I started my group 12 years ago that I then started researching and clarified for myself, none of this is real. And then from then I was POMO from then on, from about 12 years ago, for sure.
And that is so important. I think the bridge to becoming POMI, physically out, mentally in, to becoming POMO or even POMI is research. I always find that the ones who are physically out, mentally in, have not researched, will not research, and usually, I'm just speaking from experience because I was one of those persons, or not those persons, but I had that experience. And I was just so determined that I was a sinner, and I was disfellowship, and I had been away from the congregation so long, it was drilled in my head that I needed to come back. And then every time you talk to a POMI or a person that's physically out, mentally in, their objective is, I know certain things are not right, but, I got to go back and get myself together, or I have to go, or, whatever. It's still that pool there. And it wasn't for me until, I guess I'll tell my story after my PJ. PJ, are you there?
Yes.
I love this picture, honey.
Well, my story was sort of similar to Sharon's story, that I didn't realize.
I think PJ's on bathroom break.
Is my sound not working?
No, we can hear you. You sound perfect.
Okay.
Pumpkin.
What happened was I had a similar thing to what Sharon had. Was I didn't realize that I was physically and mentally out, but I knew that I didn't agree with a lot of things.
Can you guys hear her? I can't.
Yeah, we can hear her.
Oh. Yeah, I can hear. Okay. Well, I'll just keep going. So the first thing that I can remember making me question what was going on was, we were always taught that Jehovah was a God of love, and we were supposed to be his happy people. And when my sister killed herself, all of that kind of went away. It was nothing but judgment, and you knew people were judging you. And then the elders came to the house while my uncle and a couple of my cousins were over there to talk to my mom and dad about the funeral arrangements for my sister, and said that basically, because it was a suicide, we couldn't have anything at a Kingdom Hall. And I was like, oh, wow. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem loving to me. I was 8, but it just didn't seem loving to me at that age. Then you move a little bit forward, and they decided, that they didn't know if any of the elders would be willing to even speak if we did have a funeral because of what had happened. And I was just like, oh, well, that's not loving either. And I mean, my worldly uncle and cousins saw this and immediately saw red and just got loud, argued with them. my uncle told the elders that they were going to let his brother mourn the death of his daughter the way he needed to, and they were going to get out of the way.
Mm.
And I was like, finally, someone's speaking up for us. It's like, I didn't expect that to happen.
I think, are you still there, PJ?
Yeah, I'm still here. There was a phone call trying to come through.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hang on 1 second. Let me see if I
Sure.
can get this to pick back up because it.
Hey.
Okay.
We're still
Well,
trying.
while we're waiting for PJ,
Okay,
yes,
can y'all hear me?
yes, we can hear you, honey. I can hear you. Sharon, can you hear her?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Can you hear any of it? You can hear everybody but PJ.
I can
I
hear
can
everyone
hear her.
else. Yeah. That's
Well,
fine.
my
I'll just wait.
headphones
Yeah.
came undone, so let me try to fix this, and I'll have to come back and finish.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I didn't really know which acronym kind of described me because I was disfellowship, and there was a time where I was physically out and mentally in, and I always contend. And I'm sorry if you guys are listening. At least I was, but I just think that is the worst part, like the worst layover of all of the acronyms, because you are living a life that is not a Jehovah's Witness life, but you still mentally here feeling like you have to come back, so you can never really enjoy or do your life you're living because you really have all of these triggers and this indoctrination that you don't even feel impelled to even look up or get rid of. You just have this inkling that you have to go back. And for me, I started waking up during the reinstatement process. I was so determined that I needed to come back to the organization. And at the time, my parents and family around me, they would talk to me because when they knew that I was trying to come back. There was some watchtower that came out that said that something, I don't know if you guys remember it, that you can have some type of association, or if you see the disfellowship person making strides and coming back, then you could have some, I don't have to find it, maybe I'll link it here below. So then she felt comfortable talking to me, but I was determined to come back. And I had a personal situation in my immediate family with my husband and I in our marriage. When I started having doubts, I got wind of the Australian Royal Commission. I don't even know how. I think I was just browsing something else, like in a news app, and it came up. And I looked at it and I just started shaking. I was super triggered. And on the back end, I guess like you, Sharon, and Emma, there were some things that I never believed. Like I never believed in 1914, and I never believed that every single person was going to die except for Jehovah's Witnesses. I just never believed that. You know what I'm saying? And I never, even out in field service, would even want to talk about Armageddon, like those magazines with the big atom bomb and on the front, or like all those magazines. I would never place those. Like I would be like, I'm not placing this. I don't know why they put this on the Y. Sorry, y'all, I'm not doing it. And so there was a time when I was physically out, mentally in, but during the reinstatement process, I had, like I said, an issue with my marriage. I was open about it in the paper that PJ, Amber Sawyer, and I was in relation to the Harvard Kegel murder suicide. We were actually commenting on that. So I was open about the fact that I had an issue of adultery, and or an instance of adultery, and my husband at the time wasn't attending meetings either, physically out but mentally in, and he was just so determined that I had to go to the elders. You have to go to the elders. You have to straighten this out. You have to get this right with Jehovah. We can't move on from our marriage unless you go talk to the elders. At the time, I was kind of waking up, because that was kind of waking me up, because I was thinking like to myself, like, I don't feel like I have to go in front of 3 men to try to tell them all the dirty ins and outs of what I've been doing. And I just couldn't reconcile that, but I ended up going. And what ultimately woke me up was the questions, the disgusting, dirty, weird ass questions they asked me on that judicial meeting. And they wanted me to rat out another Jehovah's Witness that I knew that took blood, and I wouldn't do it.
Wow.
So on top of that, I had told them in the course of conversation, that's why the ex-Jehovah's Witness community is so important, because they would have put me up on game or kind of told me like, no, you talking too much to the elders, because I told them there were some things that I didn't believe. Just in passing, talking about something else. That literally stopped the whole judicial meeting after they start asking me all those dirty questions about how I liked it and the way I liked it, and do my husband know I liked it, just all this other kind of weirdness. And they sent me out of the room and came back, and then they basically told me, and I don't remember their words, but like basically I caught another charge, apostasy. It was like and I was like, is this how this works? You can catch another charge in the middle of another judicial meeting? Like, don't you have to meet with me about this charge? Like, I'm trying to look, I'm from Detroit. I know how court usually works. You don't catch a charge on the same day and get tried on the same day. I was like, y'all, I don't need a lawyer or somebody. Y'all ain't got no JW lawyer or somebody to help me out.
I need a lawyer.
y'all can't put this charge on me. Y'all ain't told me nothing about no apostasy before I came in here. But seriously, the only question they wanted me to ask, and I was kind of prepared for it, because at the time I was trying to save my pioneer friend from apostasy, because I was going on Eric Wilson's site trolling him, and we ended up becoming good friends. And so I was going.
You're so funny.
I was calling the mess out of Eric Wilson, and he was so kind, always so kind. And him and this team around him, and I ended up befriending some other people around him. And in my time of need, when I was sick, they were there. So I'm always eternally grateful for them. But yes, I was an asshole, a Jehovah's Witness asshole. They probably was looking like, okay, Miss Brainwash coming on the site, getting all upset. But yeah, I caught another charge, and the only thing they wanted to know was, do you believe that the governing body is the person that is the entity or persons that are being used by Jehovah on earth?
Oh my.
And that was the question that put me out. Like, all the other stuff didn't matter.
Did you tell them to watch the Australian Royal Commission where they admitted?
I wish I had knew all of that stuff then. See, I didn't know all that research until later, because I definitely would have. Because I did. I started getting mad when they was asking me questions, but when they asked me about the governing body, it got real serious to me. I was like, because at the time I was still kind of in. I was like, how could you ever ask me whether or not I think the governing body is being used or whatever? And I think they kind of didn't believe me or something. So they told me, basically, it was so much on the plate: adultery, apostasy, a lot of A's. So it was I knew I was going to be out. I just knew I was. But at the same time, it was after leaving that judicial committee, I felt so dirty. And I didn't have this idea of whether I could come back or not. Because I was like, if y'all for 1 second think I'm about to tell y'all I believe in 1914, because that was the issue, 1914. Mm-hmm. To get back in here, I'm never going to lie. Just to come back to the hall. And I didn't want to tell my family and friends that I somehow came in there getting judicially handled for adultery, and I got kicked out forever to the Jehovah's Witnesses unless I renounce that I believe that 1914 is a fraud. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where
1914.
Yeah,
and, I just we're kind of like trying to find some humor in it, and there's some humor in it. But I'll tell you what, I went through almost the same thing. And at that time, when you're going through that, and you're in that small room, the second school,
right? The back room.
Yeah, the back room. It's not funny, and you feel like it's the fucking end of the world.
Yeah,
that's what you feel like. You feel like it's the end of the world. You feel like you're the worst person on the planet, and that there's no hope for you. And you feel so, it's the worst feeling in the world. Like, what, if it was a true religion, what religion does that to a woman? Who does that to a child? Who does that to a man? That stuff just pisses me off.
Well, of course, and then the thing about it is these 3 men that was on there, these were people like the questions they were asking me, because again, the issue of porn came up. I guess I got disfellowship for everything you could possibly get disfellowship on this one thing. And
you get a gold star, Spencer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you, I got there. Here's the thing. I had never been in trouble with the J-Dubs. I had never been pulled in the back room ever before in my life. I mean, well, I take that back. Up till then, well, that's another story. Up until then, I was disfellowship because me and my husband couldn't, keep our hands off each other. But like the second time I was disfellowship, like before I was disfellowship for that, I was never like in a back room for nothing or nothing like that. Or, I knew some people that was always in the back room, like it was the principal's office, and it was never like that for me. But
yeah, Emma.
Emma, were you in the principal's office?
And the back room became my second home at the end of the day. It was just like if my stepdad elder disappeared at the end of the meeting, I'd look around, notice the other elders are gone, I'd be like, right, okay. Wait half an hour, he'd come out and I'd be like, what have I done now? And he'd say, I'll tell you when you get home. Because the last 2 years I was in, most of the elders' meetings was about stuff I'd been dobbed in for doing. So yeah, I was used to the back room.
They called me off guard with trying to ask me about whether or not that sister took a blood transfusion, knowing that I was really close to that old sister. And it was very obvious because she had some type of brain thing that, it was obvious that she may have maybe used drip blood or whatever, but I'm not no snitch. So I guess I would have got this sort of not being a snitch, but it was so uncomfortable because the people that were on the judicial committee or the panel were people that my husband and I, they were our age. So we have been going out circus with them. We had done stuff outside of the hall with them. And then they look visibly like not wanting to ask me this question about what kind of porn I like. Because why would I tell a man that's supposed to be my husband's friend? It was so weird. It was so weird.
Yeah, it's even just hearing it, I was never in the back room. I was way too young for that shit.
We were always way too young for that shit, and no matter how old we were, we weren't ready.
Like I was never in the back room, but them elders was shady. Like there was a girl who got this. I believe she was disfellowshipped for like kissing a worldly guy, something like that. Super promiscuous, I know, right? And it was her father. Like her father was the elder who made that call, and he was the one leading the judicial committee, and he was like, you're disfellowshipped and I'm not gonna talk to you. You can stay in your room in the attic in the house that we have, but we're not gonna feed you, we're not gonna talk to you. You're just there like a ghost. And it was such a crazy like whiplash experience because like they lived 2-3 streets away from us, so we like saw them around and saw her around, and it was so trippy how everyone was like, nope, I don't see you, I don't hear you, you don't exist.
They look you dead in the face and act like they seen a ghost, and they go, ooh, ow, sorry. They try to get out your way. It's weird.
You know what's interesting is I've seen Amish, I'm sure we all have seen Amish programs on how they shun. Mm-hmm. And there was one called The Shunning, and I think that was the name of it. And it was about a girl that wanted to play guitar, and the family didn't allow it, so she hid the guitar. She would play out in the barn and stuff. And her dad ended up destroying it and blah, blah, blah. It's a long story. I think it's a Hallmark movie. It was really good. But they show the Amish girls sitting at a smaller table in the dining room while the rest of the family sits at a big table. And you know what just dawned on me just last year was how many of us support, and I'm not picking on anyone, I'm not picking on the Amish. Fact of the matter is they do the exact same damn thing to good people that Jehovah's Witnesses and other cults are getting away with. And what do a lot of us do? We support the Amish selling their goods. We think it's like, you know, because it's like some primitive people, like ooh,
that Amish chicken, y'all. Right.
Amish cheese, Amish chicken. But if you
Amish
really
bagels.
but if you really look deeper and you really look at the lives that they destroy, even though they shun differently than Jehovah's Witnesses do, I mean, like, I don't really ever want to buy Amish anything again. That's how I feel about it.
They are as bad. I've watched a lot of programs, Breaking Amish and different programs, documentary, you know, when they make it into like a whole series. I've watched a lot on Amish, and they are just as bad as JWs. And we've got a few Amish in the group as well that have came in and joined our group because they know that they've been treated the same and they can relate to like what we've been through as well.
Mm-hmm.
So PJ, did you get your issues with your sound straightened out? Because we want to hear the rest of your story, honey.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Where was I? I don't even remember.
I think you were talking about the fact that where they wouldn't allow, they were going back and forth about whether or not somebody could speak at your sister's funeral.
Yes. The elders were going back and forth about whether or not any of them could give a talk for her because it was a suicide. And I know I heard the whispers around, because you know where a lot of the gossip happened was in the women's bathroom.
Girl,
and
yeah.
If you were in a stall with the door shut, and I'm short, so my feet don't touch the ground, you hear stuff.
Yeah.
So they didn't know I was in there, and they were talking about what had happened. And I heard one of the Jehovah's Witnesses at the Kingdom Hall say, you know, well, Elder so-and-so told me that I might not want to bring my kids to this.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just like, so the elders are telling people not to even come, but they're going to make my parents pay for a funeral and not use the Kingdom Hall free. And then they're fighting over whether or not an elder could even give the funeral discourse, which they finally did. Like, one of the elders stood up and said, look, I will do it. It doesn't hurt my conscience to speak for her because I'm doing it for her parents and her sisters, and they're still, you know, part of us. You know, it's basically what he meant, was that he was doing it for my parents because they were witnesses.
Right.
And so it was just like,
I'm sorry, that's what woke you up? The fact that how they were treating you and your
Well, it was a couple of things. Like I said, it was similar to Sharon. I would have these episodes of, I don't agree with that. And then I would think, oh, there's something wrong with me, because my mom could move past it and be fine. And I was just like, okay, I guess there's something wrong with me, or I have an attitude problem. That was what I was told, that I was hard-headed and I had an attitude problem. And I ended up in the back room with the elders on several occasions for several different things. And they were stupid. Like, one of the things that made me start to wake up was when they called me in the back room to ask me if I could tell the person I was studying with that she wore too much, and it was morbid and very worldly. And I was like, y'all really making fun of a whole color?
I got cancelled for that.
You did?
Been there.
And then I remember my mother. Now this one got me really angry, and I actually had words with an elder because I had kind of faded a little bit at this point and read some stuff and decided, you know, I need to look further into this, but I'm busy because I was trying to, you know, go to school and get an apartment because I was homeless at the time. So I just remember my mom telling me in passing when I was over at her house visiting my kids one day, that she had applied to be a regular pioneer, and the elders had turned her down because her facial hair from her hormonal imbalance made her look dirty, and they didn't want her representing them at the doors like that.
So it was a combination of things. Like, I mean, and here's the thing, like, that slowly started to wake you up, because you started to feel like, well, this is not right. Like, if you've been in the back room, I think if you've never been in the back room before, like I had, like at some point I thought that everything back there was by Holy Spirit, like, ooh, like everything was, handled, like they made the right decisions like 100% of the time. And then there would be the few times that everybody would have this one decision that they would question, but I would always come down on the side of the governing body being right. But I'm a firm believer, I say this all the time, I think that it is not until a Jehovah's Witness goes through the judicial process sometimes that their eyes are starting to be at least awoke to that the process is a little bit more human than you thought previously. Like it's not Holy Spirit or some whatever back there making decisions about your fate, whether you're in or out of the organization. I mean, it's really human. Sometimes it can be political. It's all about who you know sometimes. Or even some of the best elders that I've known, like even in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community who were former elders, even some of the best elders that I know, were conflicted about how to be on the judicial community at some point. You know what I'm saying? So they're not all bad. Some of them wake up, as we all know, as Jehovah, as elders and as ministerial service. I mean, Eric Wilson was one. He woke up as an elder. He had traveled to all these Bethels and everything, and woke up at as an elder. So yeah, I think for all of us, it's so funny how all of our stories are so similar. It's like
Can I ask a question? When did they start charging for funerals at Kingdom Hall?
They charge?
Oh, no. They don't charge for the funerals at Kingdom Halls. What happened was my parents had to pay a funeral home to have the funeral at a funeral home because they were denied the use of the Kingdom Hall because of the suicide.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I heard that wrong. I thought you meant that the charge. I was going to say, really?
I'm about to say they really just getting outrageous now. They're charging people. All right, Chessa. I saw in the comments that you said you had I was looking for your comment where you said you had a similar story as well. I want to put it on the screen.
I was a pioneer, and but I was at home a lot because I had really bad health problems. I think I brought it up the last live stream we had, but excuse me. I couldn't walk. I had a lot of autoimmune issues. They didn't know how to diagnose me, so I stayed home a lot. We moved into the sign language congregation, and so I was helping out with the deaf, and they would come over to my house, and I'd have Bible studies, or we would VP into the meetings and watch from there. And then when I went, I would sit in the back, but I was still active in the congregation. But my being mentally out was kind of like a snowball of things. It started when I was like 17 or so. I had a couple Bible studies, and one was Muslim and the other one was Wiccan. And with both of them, I got really close to them. They became friends of mine. And when I would go to their house, we would, study the Bible, but at the same time, like, we had these really interesting discussions. And especially with the Wiccan, she would ask me things that were non-biblical, so I couldn't use my Bible with her. I had to use, allude to it. So I had some interesting discussions with them, and they were just so smart. And I would try to bring back Watchtower material for them. I would try to look up Watchtower's material on Wiccans and Muslims. And it was so off. It's so wrong. All they have on it was like from the 1950s at the time. And it was way off base. And I remember I took one of the books, I think it was Mankind's Search for God. I took it to my Muslim study, and she was incredibly, incredibly offended. And it was the same thing with my Wiccan study. So I started kind of questioning then, and then I ended up getting married. It wasn't the best relationship. It was abusive. And so, we both just were young, didn't know any better. He grew up in a bad situation, but it was abusive. So I was at home, I was being abused, I wasn't happy, and I wasn't able to attend the meetings as much. And also in sign language, I was noticing that the way they were translating things was different than the way they were translating it in English. And yeah, it was different. It was a lot of the brothers that do like the sign language videos too are really worshipped by the deaf. So like the people who are on the videos are like next to Jesus as far as deaf people are concerned. So like, there's like a lot more hierarchy and a lot more nepotism and just pettiness than there is even in English congregations. But it's a really weird culture. And I started noticing that the elders were taking advantage of deaf people or making their decisions for them. We had a deaf guy who we encountered in field service. My ex-husband actually did. And he had never spoken in his life. He couldn't hear, he couldn't speak, he was mute. And he lived in his mother's attic, and he was 40 years old. He'd never went to school, he'd never got a job, nothing, didn't know any sign language. She had home signs for him where she would tell him to sleep or eat or cook, but that was it. He'd never had a profound discussion his entire life. So they started studying with him, and they started teaching him sign language, and they looked at it as this amazing thing they were doing for him. But imagine never having a conversation in your life, and then all of a sudden someone's telling you about Armageddon. They're telling you about, you know, who Jehovah is, just all this confusing stuff. So there were a lot of people like that were isolated, and they would kind of take advantage of them. And most deaf people get SSDI every month. They get disability checks. So of course they would take that and they would donate some or all of it to the society when they didn't really have anything. So a lot of that started pissing me off. And I just started going on the internet, and I was really mentally in for a long time. I got reproved when I was like 15, 16 years old. And so I was kind of out, but I felt so incredibly guilty. Like the guilt you feel when you get disciplined is unreal if you believe. It's just the worst thing ever. So I felt guilty, the same kind of guilt when I was waking up, because I would look at things and instantly I would just tear myself apart for it. Like, how dare you look at this? This is satanic. This is lies, you know. And slowly but surely I started to question more. And then once I started to question more, I asked the elders some things in the watchtowers. They were not too pleased. So I had to stay kind of undercover because I was in an abusive situation, and I really didn't have any friends or family that I was close to. So I didn't really have a lot of help. But my parents were living in Taiwan at the time. They had just moved back from Taiwan and were living back in the States, and they moved about an hour away in Texas. And so one night they came by just to drop off some pie. It was crazy. And I asked them if I could leave and go with them and flee. And they said, really? Are you sure? And I said, yeah, I can't be here anymore. I can't handle it. So I left my husband. I left my abusive relationship just overnight, took whatever I could with me, got my dog, got my clothes in the car, and just ran. And I never looked back. And I moved out of state, and I just was like fading for a while. And then finally, one day I called my elders that were back in Dallas, and I told them, hey, I no longer want to be a Jehovah's Witness. And it was really weird because they asked me things like, oh, well, do you want to just take 6 months off? And then we can talk to you in 6 months and see how you feel. And I was like, no, I never heard that before. Have you? Where you can like take 6 months.
No,
they were like,
no.
you don't have to follow anything. You don't have to, you can live your life however you want to. We'll check back with you in 6 months. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, bye. So I told them about my ex, and I was like, listen, like, you should keep an eye on him. You should make sure that the congregation is safe, you know, just pay attention. And they ended up telling him everything I said at the next convention, which was like 2 weeks later. And then I moved to Missouri, and I ran into some witnesses that knew me in Missouri. And then in 15 minutes later, he called me and was like, what are you doing in Missouri? And I was like, so it's super weird. I wasn't like overly shunned because I left and I fled. But I've had some that have reached out to me and tried to like get in contact and been like, oh, you should come back to Jehovah, yada, yada, yada. And then they've just stopped talking to me after that. But It took time. I see a lot of elders that are still serving, and they just have questions, and they keep trying to do what they do and just push through it. But you can see that they're not really in there anymore. So
Right.
I don't know how many are physically in, mentally out. There's probably a lot of witnesses, especially right now, that are just stuck at home, quarantined, thinking about
I'm
life.
hoping them sit down has them thinking. And you know, I always wonder, because my husband's father is a COBE. You know how you can be on that level in the Jehovah's Witnesses and not have some questions. You know.
Yeah, it seemed like the higher up the chain you went to, it was more like company men, because I remember when the DO or the CO would come around, that was like company policy all the way. You know, they didn't care about anything else. They didn't care about the little guy. They just went by the book. And the higher you go, the more it's just a company and less about the people. So most of the elders are really the ones that have that dissonance, because they're on the lower rung. They get to see things every day. Once you get to Bethel, you're completely alienated. So, I don't know.
Thank you so much, Chessa, for sharing your story. And Molly, you like me, you don't have a POMI story, but you more of a different acronym, right?
Yes. So I was never a PIMO. I was a POMI, but hey, get off the desk. But you see, I'm sorry about the rabbits. They are just being naughty tonight. And so basically I was a POMI for a while. Like after my mom found out that I snuck off the convention, she locked me in the house, and well, it's a dangerous thing leaving a Jehovah's Witness alone, because they start doing this dangerous thing called thinking.
Right.
And then they start to realize, like all Jehovah's Witnesses I ever interacted with, each and every single one of them knew that I was abused at home. Each and every one of them knew that I was not safe mentally and emotionally. Each and every one of them knew that I wanted to get out of that house. But none of them did jack shit to help me. They were like, pray to Jehovah, like hug your mom every day, tell her you love her, help her around the house, like basically be a human rug so that she can walk all over you, and then she will be grateful to have you. And maybe the abuse will stop. And so when she locked me in the house and I was alone with my thoughts, it would make me question even more things, like we discussed just earlier in this stream. And basically what I did was reread the Bible all alone in peace and quiet, with no goal to prove it true or untrue. I was like, okay, I will crack this book open, and I will see what it's about. And then what I did was reach out to people and distance myself from religion for a while. What I did was just basically forget about it. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna focus on religion right now. I'm just gonna figure myself out and then just see if Jehovah finds a way back to me, or if I find a way back to Jehovah. Well, I was naive. Never mind. It has been 10 years. And Jehovah is nowhere to be found. I guess he needs my phone number, so whatever. And basically I made some new friends, and I went to therapy. I needed to wait until I was 18. I woke up at around like 16, and I needed to wait until I was 18 because that's the legal age in Hungary where you can get treatment, any kind of treatment, without parental consent. And my mother doesn't believe in therapy, so I was like, Fuck.
That's a big one, Molly. That's a big one, Molly. So if you are PIMO out there, we're going to give you some of our advice. Since you've heard our stories, you've heard us on various levels of trying to leave, and some. So that's what you said. Actually, Molly, is a big one. Waiting until you're 18. If you're a PIMO person under 18, you in a lot of areas you have to wait until you are of adult age in order to leave. I know I left at 19. I was sleeping in my car for not long, for a couple, I would say a few weeks, and I actually moved in with one of my Bible studies because my mother would not let me move back unless I went back to the hall. That's a different story for probably another show. But I would suggest, I think if I had it to do it all over again, I wish somebody would have told me to get a job, to try to set myself up and to stay in school, because I ended up dropping out of school because the elders were acting psycho about me pioneering and being they said I was setting a bad example or something. Was there anybody else? Let's go around the table.
Well, when I was still a witness and my children were, really young, one of my children actually was having some, we were in, me and the children were in an abusive situation, and which I think was promulgated by the rules of the Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not going to put 100% guilt on my children's father. I think that a lot of it, some of it at least, quite a bit of it had to do with the rules that the society teaches and enforces, that men need to have their children and their wives in submission.
Right.
And so because it's emphasized, so a lot of men, and of course there's that take that, and like when I was growing up, my dad was real passive. He was kind of a fader, but my mom was deep in it. Mom was taking the lead spiritually. She felt that it was her responsibility to make sure that and my dad were in submission to one of my children, some behavioral
Okay, Sharon, it looks like we have trouble with your audio.
Mental issues. She was only 6 or 7, and I myself, like, how do I me?
Yeah, it's just breaking up a little.
You're breaking up really badly.
Oh, I am? Let me leave and come back.
I will say something that Sharon is saying is actually interesting, because in the Jehovah's Witness organization, you're not only required, if you're married, to be in subjection to your husband, and even if you're not married, this will apply, but you're also required to be in subjection to everybody else's husband in the organization, because you can't really talk back to them or.
I never thought about that.
Say anything out the way.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
I mean, if I can add to that, it's like I said, I left the organization like around 15, and I became a POMO at like 16, and well, as you can see, I still don't have a very like mature face or a mature physique. I'm still like a kid. Look at
you are cute. I'm cute. You're sexy, and you're a sexy woman, honey.
So the point, the thing is, when we had boys in the congregation, like it was a big pond, honey. It was 4 boys our age in the congregation. It was a so obviously when we like got to know them, because we had like barbecues and like in the summertime we would buy pork chops, like parts of the pig's belly, and cook them outside on free fire, like a bonfire kind of thing with bread and shit. So we usually had those during like the summer, and all the, you know, people with kids would come, and the kids would play, and the adults would, I don't even know what Jehovah's Witnesses adults do, sit around and gossip, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, so
Pretty much.
I was always trying to be like honest and funny and all that, and I had a crush on this guy, and so I was like extra funny when he was around. I was like, yeah, I kind of want to make him laugh, so whatever. But then, mind you, it was like some stupidity on my part, because boy, I'm so not straight, but that's another thing. So, and the father who raised me, like the Jehovah's Witness father, was an elder, and he was like, you girls are too worldly and too like hasty with these boys, and like giggling and laughing around and all that. And I was like, really? Because we're not acting different. It's just that we're trying to be like funny and engaging in like conversation. Maybe, just maybe, if you're leaving the organization, especially if you're a woman, maybe just try reaching out to the opposite gender, because first of all, you're gonna have a hard time detaching yourself from this brainwashing stupidity. Like you're gonna be like, okay, how do I even like communicate with the other gender, the other sex, and maybe just try to look at them as humans.
You know, like, I'm sorry. You said something interesting, Molly, about how, you know, the boys, you know what, I had a thought, you know, about women in the organization or whatever. Not only did we have to be in subjection to everybody's husband, if you're a woman, you had to be in subjection to some kids. Like if they were just men, like if you was in a field service group and nobody was there.
I need to rescue my bunny.
Oh, please do. We don't want no bunnies dying on the live stream. We are not responsible for any bunnies that are hurt.
If there were young baptized men, and considering that lads can get baptized at 13, so then a woman's supposed to be in subjection to that child?
Yeah, you can't pray in front of him unless you wear a scarf. Like what?
Put a napkin on your head. Yeah.
So it's like it's like the men are at the top. You know what I'm saying? As soon as a woman in the organization, not like I said, you not only your subjection to your husband if you're married, but even if you're not married, if you're single, you can't just go up and just say, hey, you know what, elder, I don't agree with that. Or anybody else, man, I mean, they will look at you like, woo, why is she talking? I remember this one instance, I'll never forget, I'm gonna wrap it up really quick. When this lady, it was a brother at the hall who gave the wrong answer. And the sister raised her hand to try to give the answer behind him. And everybody was just like looking like, oh my goodness, like whatever. And I'm thinking like, what's going on? After that, the next day we was out in field service in the car group gossiping, and they was like, girl, you know, she knows she wasn't supposed to correct the brother go behind the brother and correct him. I'm looking like that. Is that a rule? That was a rule? Like you couldn't in openly correct a brother in the watchtower. At least that's how it went down in our congregation. And I thought to myself, like, super wild. Like, I have the right answer, but what? Just because I got boobs, I can't answer.
I mean, what's crazy is that most of the JW men that I had like some big time interaction with, like the elder that raised me, he was like unable to make himself a sandwich. He was so fucking pathetically useless that he could not get his ass off the couch to make himself a sandwich and then threw a literal hissy fit, breaking plates and shit, because the wrong kind of ham was on the sandwich.
What?
Or because the crust was on it. I don't remember exactly. Either the wrong kind of ham or like cold cut was on the sandwich, or the crust was on when he didn't want it to be. And it's like, okay.
Well, guys, we're gonna wrap before we wrap up with PJ and Chessa and Emma and Sharon. Because my only advice for PMOs is to please make friends outside of the org. I wish I would have done that. That way, when I lost 100%. Everybody, I would have had somebody.
And research.
That, we're going to take questions and comments. So I want you to look at the link below in the comments. If you click that link, you'll be able to actually join the broadcast with us. To ask your question in audio, you can go on audio like PJ and Chessa is doing, or you can even be live like me, Molly, and Sharon, and kick it with us on the glass table to ask your question or leave a comment about today's show. We having a question and answer session that's coming up in a few minutes. So if you don't want to join the broadcast, that's okay. You can just also leave a comment below, and we'll make sure that we answer it before we go. So, and I'm sorry, Molly, I was cutting you off as I was talking.
Yeah, sorry. So another thing that's important is like research. Like, and it's not because they are atheists or anything. It's because they help place it into perspective. I just started reading Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and I have been an atheist for like a decade now, and they still help me like find those little remnants of like, oh, I did not realize this before. So, right. And Stephen Hassan. Read loads of Stephen Hassan.
I follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, he's awesome. Like these three men are awesome, and do other types of research. There are plenty good ExJW YouTubers and atheists or like secular humanist YouTubers who don't drone on and go against religion. They just challenge harmful ideas. You can also try and source your local meetups, especially in the US. You can, I believe, easily find access to ExJWs. And, well, in Hungary it's a bit harder. I still to this day have only met one apostate online, and I have been like 10 years out. I don't know of any other ExJWs in the country. Like, maybe it's just that they don't go around drumming, but...
Right. Well, thank you so much, Molly. So we're going to move on to Sharon, because you were cut off and you were talking about submission and subjection. So I want you to be able to finish your thought and to be able to tell us your advice you would give to those who are PIMO, or is it POMI? Or what are we calling the people that's physically out, mentally in? POMO, POMI? Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Y'all know what we're talking about. Go ahead, Sharon. Oh, Sharon, the audio. I can't hear your audio.
Yeah, I can't hear either.
Me neither.
You're beautiful, though.
M E E T H. Oh, you. G. Okay. P or K? Okay, P.
This is so funny.
Meetups.
Yes,
the meetups.
Okay. So we have local meetups all over the place that you can find either by contacting any of us or going on Facebook.
We have Facebook meetups. We have a Discord
Yeah, I'm not
chat,
going
and we
anywhere.
also have Reddit in case anybody wants to. Yeah, well, they have meetup.com. They have like the local groups there, and you can just go on and chat or connect with them. And then Discord, Facebook, we have a lot of different ways that we can meet up online. I think a lot of us are going to start doing stuff like this, like Skyping or having video conferences, chatting, because we can't go outside right now. I know a lot of us are stuck inside. I think about chemos for stuck inside with abusive family or just with family that are in. It's got to be really, really hard for them right now. So if you guys need a break and maybe you can't use audio, so go on Discord or something like that, or maybe you know, just watch your internet history, whatever you do. Make sure you're clearing your history so that you don't get caught. But
so
use a Tor browser. That's what I was told.
Yeah, Tor's good.
They told me to use a Tor browser. I had a new name, y'all. I had a new email address, honey. And I told y'all in the last show, I was so anonymous, and I'm all online, all types of night trying to research. Then my husband thought, like, okay, who are you talking to online all types of night? And I would rather him think that than think that I was trying to research the Watch Tower, which is really crazy. But anyway, Molly, what you want to say?
Well, so for anyone who needs like to talk or just vent or just, you know, have someone to reach out to, we're here. Like, please reach out and reach out, because I know that if this quarantine thing happened when I lived in my family, I would rather hang myself. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I would rather die than spend even just 2 days locked with my family.
Yeah, we don't want anybody to die or hang themselves, by the way. Please reach out to someone.
I posted on Reddit yesterday and said that I really feel for like PIMOs that are stuck at home, because it's got to be an awful situation. And the advice I would give as well is I get a lot of messages from PIMOs that want to join my group, and I say to them, make a fake profile, come back, answer the questions, tell me you're on a fake profile, and also set your settings so your groups aren't visible. Because even when they join a private group, your friends can still see what groups you're in. They can't see what you post, but they can still see what groups you're in. So I tell like PIMOs, join the group in a fake name and don't have your groups list as anyone can see. And then that way, also unfollow the group. So if they're around anybody, then it's not going to come up in their news feed.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it will. And then say if you're around a JW and it pops up in your news feed, someone's posted in that group, you're going to be sussed. So unfollow and, you know, privatize your group settings.
No.
Also, if you want to make
go ahead. No,
if you want to make a fake Facebook, you can do that, and you can make a fake Gmail account so that it goes just to that Gmail account, whatever Facebook alerts you have. So that way you're safe and you can go under a different name. Like I know a lot of us have. John Redwood had a different name before he was Mark O'Donnell. Lloyd Evans was John Cedars before he came out as himself. I was Lycaea Quinn before I came out as Chessa Manion. So a lot of us have our alter egos, and sometimes it feels more comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I know y'all ain't met no black chick named Spencer, so stop it. But I love the name, and you know, actually, I thought about it that now that it's such my online presence that, you know, I've endeared. People have made me love this name so much, and it almost make me want to get rid of my old one. No, I'm serious.
Suits you.
I really, you know, I've met one other Spencer. I take that back. That was a woman. But it's usually people think I was a man, and I actually went on a site, you guys. So for those PIMOs out there, I guess I was a fellowship sort of PIMO, if that's even a thing. And I was on my other account, and, you know, y'all all know what that account is, but I'm not telling everybody. When I was on my other account, my personal account, I was having questions and doubts, or just post questions, and my family would get so upset on Facebook, or people in my congregation would just flood and it would just make me feel like, oh, let me hurry up before I catch a case over here before they tell on me. And I went online to try to figure out an alias to use, And I went to a gender neutral name generator, and Spencer Tyler was the first thing that came up, but everybody still thinks I'm a man, even though it's supposed to be a gender neutral name. So yeah, so that's the story of me being Spencer Tyler. I mean, obviously, well, not obviously, it may not be obvious, but that's not my name, my birth name. That's not my government name, y'all. That's my JW, name in the bushes. I'm hiding and lurking and, trying to do my thing, activism thing. At some point, I would love to be like you, Chessa, and like you and the others that you mentioned, to be able to just use my name.
Oh my God!
Me. Oh, what happened? But there is my husband, who is also PIMO. So it's kind of complicated with me. I can't just out myself and out him. You know what I'm saying? I have to be able to.
Yeah.
He has to be able to want to come out on his own time. So that's kind of complicated if you're married to an ex-Jehovah's Witness and you on various levels of leaving organization, then you can't really have like such a really strong online presence. And his father, his publisher card is in the congregation of his father, who is the CO, the PO or the COBE or whatever you have named it now. So it's really crucial for him not to, at this point, he's not ready. I mean, he had an instance of, not a scare, but a scare, like when his grandfather died, they were going to bring an apostasy charge to him for carrying the casket and putting it in the ground because they said it was part of the service.
What?
He ended up not doing that. So they're looking for something. So they can, I don't know. You can't rush somebody else's out, somebody else.
Yeah.
You want to be out. And so I try to be gracious and kind. But yeah, people who know me, there are people on my page who do know me and know that I speak openly about the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I talk to them in real life every day. Like people that are my friends, they know me as Spencer Tyler, but not everybody. Not everybody.
I'm sorry about the.
No, that's okay. So if you out there, PIMOs, it's okay. Everybody, almost everybody in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community has an alias. Almost everybody.
Yeah.
Or at some point did.
And I'm sorry about my kids bumping the.
They're so cute. Sharon, Sharon, are you ready? Go ahead, try it again. Are you on mute? Are you muted? Let's see. No, you're not on mute. Oh, let's go to the question and answer.
Yeah.
I'm a lip reader. Yes. Okay, let's go question and answer session. Sharon is keeping time, y'all. Thank you, Sharon.
I only know limited sign language.
Okay, let's see if do we have any questions, comments? I'm just going through our comments here. Let's say we are on both Facebook and live, but we have a lot of people commenting. Let's go through some of these comments then. If y'all don't have questions, and I still got Chessa up here. Let me take this down. So give me 1 second, y'all. Chessa, there we go. Let's go through some of these comments that Leslie, on Facebook, we have Nigel Rowley. I'm sorry, on YouTube. He says, hello all. My advice for a Jehovah's Witness PIMO is to leave the Watchtower cult as soon as physically and mentally possible. I think that's always the goal, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like, this is my observation in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, there is a small segment, and I'm saying a small segment, so don't jump on me in the comments, y'all. A small segment of the ex-Jehovah's Witness community that I have run into that are irritated by the fact that people are PIMO. Because they'll say something like, well, I just left. I didn't have to go through all of that. And, I stood up and I just left. Like, basically, what the hell is taking y'all so long to just leave? I lost or I was willing to lose all my family and everything. So basically, I'm a better, ExJW or, than you are. That's the impression that I get. I don't know. Has anybody run across that in groups where people are?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And another thing is that I know that we all want to save the world. We talked about this. We all want to save the world, but honey, everyone, take your time before you do that. Like, go to therapy, detach and dismantle the indoctrination and the doomsday fears in yourself first, so that you can help people and you can be useful. Because if you are still like indoctrinated even one bit, it can seriously misfire on you, and no one wants that. And
Right.
and so let's not be hasty, let's not be egotistical. Take your break and relax.
Sorry, y'all. I have no idea what is going on with the stream.
You play with the buttons back there.
And I know y'all looking like, is she trying to be Beyonce? Because why her picture was so much bigger than everybody else's. No, I'm not trying to be Beyonce in the group, y'all. I left and came back for some reason. I'm glad it didn't mess with the stream. But anyway, we have technical difficulties. None of us did microphones, so we trying to figure it all out. So we have a Nigel Rowley again. Somebody says, great point, Molly. Yes, great point, Molly. Have you noticed if more Jehovah's Witnesses are reaching out since the Witnesses documentary aired? Maybe this is a question for Chessa.
Yeah, I've actually had a lot of people who reached out either because they were waking up and they wanted to know if there was a way they could help. And I told them, well, maybe you should get your situation set first before you start helping. But, you know, we talked for a while. And then there's been some people who were recently out, got this fellowship, or were wondering about going back in, but they saw the Witness documentary and it really shocked them. They did a really good job with that documentary, highlighting how big of a cover-up it is. So a lot of people wouldn't watch it because they saw it was negative on the Witnesses already. The title is The Witnesses, so I think most Jehovah's Witnesses would assume that it's negative press. But
of course it is. They assume everything is negative about them.
Right, but I have had a lot of people reach out, and I'm looking forward to having more in the future. Hopefully, we'll have more documentaries like that as well that will wake people up, especially now that they're all home. Oh
yeah, so I haven't actually had a chance to watch it all the way through. So if you're on the line, and I watched Chessa parts. I'm sorry, y'all, but I didn't watch nobody else. But because sometimes some of these documentaries are triggering for me. I don't know why.
Triggering. That documentary was insanely triggering. Triggered a lot of people.
So I wanted to support my girl, but and then after that I was like, I can't do it. I love everybody, but no, I can't. It was just, I don't know, like I don't know why it does that to me. It's triggering. Like
for me, the most triggering part was the Kingdom melodies in the beginning. Like when they played like the Kingdom songs. Oh my God, I got goosebumps. Oh, it was.
Yeah,
I was
super cringe. Yeah, super cringe. Super cringe.
Yeah.
We have a Samantha Pickerling on Facebook who says, in this age of progressive equality, it wasn't until I woke up that I recognized the misogyny and oppression of the organization. I think we all can identify with waking up, and I think for me, I just thought it was something I was supposed to do, just fall in line behind everybody's husband, fall in line behind my husband. I guess I didn't really think about and to me, they made it seem like, oh, well, women are such a large army. So they kind of gave us some props. Like, okay, y'all doing all the work. We still appreciate y'all, but not enough to let us have real decisions or have any input on how the organization is being ran. Or, it wasn't until recently that I learned that there was an ex-Jehovah's Witness, or not ex-Jehovah's Witness woman, but she was a Jehovah's Witness at the time on the writing committee. That blew my mind. I'm like, what? A long time ago? I forgot. I forget her name, but yeah. And I thought to myself, well, that's pretty progressive for the Watchtower. But, nothing was progressive about the Watchtower really outside of probably that. They probably didn't, I don't know how that situation happened, but typically a woman in the Jehovah's Witness organization is a second-class citizen. And somebody mentioned that here in the comments that she didn't realize that she was a second-class citizen and really until she left.
For me, also gay rights, because I had a dear friend of mine who was an NPD non-practice or an MPG non-practicing gay, And through seeing what he went through, like what he struggled with trying to be a JW and being gay at the same time, it really, really bothered me. And then when the world started allowing gay marriage and stuff, and I saw how happy people were, I was just like, why can't he have a happy life and be attracted to who he wants to be attracted to and love who he naturally loves? Why does he have to be enslaved or give up love completely? So I think, you know, equality across the board has really woke a lot of witnesses up. Spencer, really quick, Sharon said to mention the island. I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much, Chessa. I have the link ready. I was just about to click the link. If y'all see the link below, I really wish we could hear Sharon so she can introduce this clip. Let's try it one more time. Come on, Sharon. Sharon.
No, I can't hear her.
No, okay. Well, we're gonna put the link below, and it sounds like Sharon is having some audio issues. Wait a minute, I think I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay. So the problem was my earbuds.
Hey.
Anyways, there's this movie called The Island,
Careful.
and
hang on one second, Sharon. Molly, can you put your your thing on mute? I can mute you myself. I just want to okay, here we go. I got it. Never mind. Go ahead, Sharon. I just want everybody to be able to hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So in 2010, I had already been an activist for almost 2 years, and I had rented the movie called The Island, and I forget the name of the actors in it. But anyways, I sat there and on my couch and I watched this movie, and tears were just rolling down my face, because even though I was awake and I was out and I was actively creating support groups, which meetup.com, you know, people can go to meetup.com and find ex-Jehovah's Witness support groups where if we didn't have COVID restrictions, where you can actually meet people at restaurants and coffee places and actually physically meet people in your area. But anyways,
that's how I met Sharon. I met Sharon at a meetup. I just wanted to say that really quick. Sharon, when I first can I just say this? When I first came into the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, I had a lot of anxiety about meeting new people and going places. Y'all, I was just messed up. I was just a basket case. And Sharon would reach out to me to try to get me to go to some of the meetups and protests in my area. And I was just so afraid. And it wasn't until recently, you can see on my YouTube channel, this is a shameless plug, the ExJW Cafe, y'all. If y'all go to my channel, you'll see that her and I had a meetup, and we were able to video a little bit of it. It was my first ex-Jehovah's Witness meetup, y'all. So I was just, we had good food, didn't we, Sharon? Good conversations. Yeah, I ate Sharon's food. I ate my food. It was good.
Yeah, sometimes I used to travel I've traveled across states to do meetups before. It just depends on what the need is, and if there's no one in that area for a person, depending on their situation. If I was able to go, I went. But anyways, but I can't always do that. And so and that's one thing, sometimes people, they're already damaged emotionally from leaving the cult. And when we're raised as a Jehovah's Witness, we tend to be overly critical. So even leaving and becoming an ex-Jehovah's Witness, it takes years to learn to recognize that within ourselves. Are we being overly critical of each other?
Right.
And so sometimes, because me and others, not just me, but you kind of get a reputation for helping people. Well, let me tell you, if there's one person that you can't help, depending on their mental status or what mood they're in or who their friends are, if they're overly critical, sometimes I've had people point fingers and they're like, she didn't do nothing for me. I'm like, I'm not God, I'm not, I try my best to, just like we all do, to help people. But sometimes your hands are just tied. But anyways, back to this movie, The Island. It's about people that were being harvested for their body organs, but they didn't know it. So they're living in this underground world. They all wear the same outfits. They're all told the same thing over the loudspeakers. They're almost robotic, like little children in their thinking. One guy starts to wake up, and he sneaks up and he sees the outside world. And he, just in time, there was a woman that he really liked and was friends with, and he talked her into escaping with him. So they escaped and they got to the outside world, and they they fled and they were chasing them. But it so closely resembles what it's like leaving Jehovah's Witnesses or leaving a cult. And if you haven't seen it, you've got to see it. And it's in the description. Spencer's going to put it underneath.
Yes, it's in the description box, and it's also in the comments below. Well, you guys, we have been chatting at the glass table for almost an hour. We're coming up on an hour and a half, which is typically what our broadcasts have usually been, you guys. So if we don't have any more final comments or questions or anything like that, let me just check and see. I see y'all talking about Scarlett Johansson on YouTube and Ewan McGregor now. Now I need to figure out what we're talking about with him, because I love me some Ewan McGregor now.
He's in the movie. He's in the Islands.
He's in Ireland?
He's the lead actor in The Island. And Scarlett Johansson is the lead actress. Yeah.
I love me some Scarlett.
Can I just read out a comment here?
Yeah.
This shocks me. Goat-like personality. I was PIMO for 14 years.
Wow.
Because I love my PIMI ex-wife.
Did you see his video? Did you see his video he did?
Yes, that's just like, wow.
Is that a comment on Facebook?
I've watched quite a few of his videos, but not all of them. Yeah, it's on YouTube.
It made me cry.
Wow.
Definitely watch it if you haven't. I think it was his video on how he stopped being a Jehovah's Witness. But he talks about his wife. It was super sweet.
That came up in my feed, but I haven't got around to watching it yet.
It's really good.
Okay, so you guys, we are going to close out. Thank you so much for joining us today. We do have a special topic for next week. And I didn't even ask our crew whether or not we're going to release our topic or not yet. Should we talk about our topic, or should we talk about it in the classroom discussion? Because if y'all not in the classroom discussion, like, what are y'all doing? Like, what are y'all really doing? So, yeah, we talk about the show, after the show, questions, comments, even people go like personality. I don't know how you thought about our audio today, but we've been working on it. So if you have questions, comments, suggestions, or even some stuff y'all just want to get off your chest, you can definitely do it in the classroom discussion, where we're going to post all the links and continue our discussion after the discussion here. So thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel, and also subscribe to our page. Of course, I have to do our plugs at the end. That way you'll be able to keep up with us and get notifications when we're live again. Bye.
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 Thanks for joining us.